All right, what's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about how to pick the proper regression and movement that's actually going to help you move forward. The amount of time that I see people spending on movements or exercises that aren't really moving the needle forward for them is pretty ridiculous. If you're above the age of 40 especially, it's getting a little, even if you're 30, you're probably going to already have some of these early onset issues, all of them dealing with posture. So think of it like you have a river, and over time that river starts to get more and more and more cut off. So this is how your joints typically work. The more impinged you become, the more closed this front angle becomes instead of being able to open up. You are going to have issues. All the fluids in your body aren't going to be able to be transported as well, and you're going to have troubles breathing as well. So when you go out to do cardio, maybe you run, maybe you do basketball or something like that, if you have issues running or breathing while you run, when you start to get fatigued, there's a certain level that is normal, and there is a certain level that is just restricted because all of your muscles are so tight right here. So what we want to do over time, basically your tightness is just a product of not picking the right exercises or doing the proper progressions, as well as just being too sedentary. And you basically become the posture you spend the most time in. So most people will slowly conform to the sitting posture. That is why most people, when they get older, they're in that walker position. And depending how old you are and where you're at, you might be closer than you think, or kind of one bad injury away from going down that path. So I was just meeting with a guy today. He was in his late 30s. He didn't have any major injuries or anything like that. However, most of his program was consistent of just barbell lifts, kind of like a bro split sort of, and so he was thinking he didn't have any movement limitations, but when I would watch him do these exercises, it was very apparent that he should probably regress a little bit, and he hadn't been training his core much at all. So when I put him in the hollow hold position, and this is ultimately the tell for people, is the hollow hold, because you cannot fake it. How people typically try to fake it is their lower back will come raised off the ground. You want to keep it completely flat. So we're basically putting our body in the sitting position, but just on our back. So when your pelvis naturally rolls forward when you stand, we're going to roll it neutral and put your back flush with the ground, and then lift your shoulder blades off the ground as well. And being able to get strong in this position, going from the hollow hold ultimately to the hollow rocks, is going to do a ton for your mobility in your core. And if you are someone that only planks, you're going to be leaving a lot on the table. So he was someone that, he thought he was strong, he thought he was doing very well, but I was able to put him in certain positions where he was very weak. And just by looking at how he did certain exercises, I was just, because I have a trained eye, I can say, oh, your right hip was coming and rotating a little closer to the bar than the left one. And he goes, oh, I actually had an issue kind of way back. And, that has led me to some knee issues. So you always can kind of go back and see what has happened. But most people, when they get started, want to go straight in to the deep end and start with the barbell, dumbbell, and just basically focusing on building muscle. And I totally get it, because that's why people start typically. It's the appeal is to just look good, but that is never going to get you to the place that you want. If a cosmetic goal can single-handedly propel you to the goal that you're trying to get to, so be it. But after I had been lifting and exercising for more than 5 years or so, things started to get old, and my body had changed quite a bit, and I didn't know how to keep going to keep myself healthy, because if I had kept going the way I was going, I would for sure either be in surgery or not be running or jumping or doing any of the active things that I do now. And as someone that's had a ton of injuries, whether it be shoulder, hip flexor, ankle, knee, it doesn't really matter. If one injury is enough to change how your body compensates and how you do certain exercises, once you start favoring one side, the kinetic chain is just going to continue to break. So before I had hip issues, I had an ankle issue. And then because I never completely addressed my ankle properly, for example, it never got quite to the strength that I needed it to before I went back to playing. And so this took me from going from a 1 foot jumper feeling very powerful to a 2 foot jumper, because I didn't have the stability and I didn't feel confident ultimately being able to go off one again. So the stability and my glutes and how my hips were aligned were all off. So then you take that body right into powerlifting like I did, and now I am in a linear barbell movement, putting more weight on a broken foundation. So ultimately this started IT band syndrome. It's because of my immobile hips, right? Because of my immobile ankles. So it just one thing constantly leads to the next. So it never really does you good to only address where the pain is. You always have to address above it and below it. So it all works together. Your body is a very intelligent being. One thing constantly leads to the next. It's never just about the symptom. There's typically a ton of other things going on under the hood that you need to be aware of. But the average person getting into fitness, just trying to lose weight and build muscle, doesn't have any of these things in mind, because they haven't seen hundreds and hundreds of people go through it. So it can be very frustrating when somebody finally reaches their goal of a weight or a physique type of look, and by the time they get it, their body is wrecked. So then, because they're unable to maintain what they have been doing to get there in the first place, they ultimately end up reverting back, or they just end up on the couch or on the surgery table. So not only do we need to get your physique where it needs to go and dial in the nutrition so we can get your weight where you want it to be, but also be able to develop a body that is resilient. So when you go to do chaotic activities, or ones that just aren't 3 sets of this, 30 seconds of this, if you're ever doing anything reactive, that's why sports, when you're reacting to an opponent or the ball when it comes at you, it's not going to be completely linear, twist like this. It's often very spur of the moment, reach back and twist, or bend down and twist, whatever. So that is when people get hurt, because all their training is completely boom, 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 boom. So then when they go into the field and they do something that is not super linear, guess what? Their body breaks down. So this is why you have to do that. And it doesn't always have to be sports. It can be, I want to play with my kids when I'm older. I just want to be able to run 3 miles without pain, or play pickup basketball. It doesn't really matter. Whatever pushes the needle forward for you or gets you to do the work, that's all that matters. It's different for every person. So you have to find out what works for you. So that is also why you shouldn't be just picking programs that are cookie cutter programs, because they don't address your certain limitations and needs. A lot of people have hips that are hiked up, or one's forward and one's back. Their ankles are turned out, and so on and so forth. So always regress before you just go barreling into body weight, or not body weight, but barbell, typical kind of like gym bro type movements. Because if you're young, yeah, you can get away with it, but if you're older, you're not going to be able to. So with all that being said, that's it.